Welcome to A Healthy Curiosity, the podcast that explores what it takes to be well in a busy world with self-care strategies from Chinese medicine. I'm your host, Brody Welch, here to support you on your journey of health, happiness, and personal evolution. Welcome to A Healthy Curiosity. I'm your host, Brody Welch, and with me today is Dr. Michelle Sands, who is a licensed functional medicine physician and naturopathic doctor who helps women harness the power of nature so that they can impact their genetic expression and live vibrantly, not just by optimizing health physically, but also mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. If you follow my podcast at all, you know that these are things that I'm also very passionate about. And Dr. Michelle Sands and I originally met when she was putting on a Nature Cures Summit, and basically that a whole bunch of experts who all share the philosophy that the body is really designed to heal itself and that our job is to empower it to do so. So we have a lot of overlap in our philosophy. I'm super excited to talk about her approach and the way that she works with people. She sees people from all over the world, and she combines things like functional lab testing with holistic lifestyle modifications, supplements, bioidentical hormones, homeopathy, Eastern philosophy. So Dr. Michelle Sands, welcome to A Healthy Curiosity. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Oh, Brody, my pleasure. I'm so excited to be part of your podcast. And this is really exciting for me to get to speak with you again on a different level.
Yeah, we had so much fun the first time, didn't we?
We did. It's funny how you meet people and you realize how much you resonate with them, and just meeting them over the internet. You know, it's really amazing.
The internet is a magical place. It can connect people far apart who are members of the same tribe. So anyway, I'm thrilled to get to talk to you again. Let's dive into something that I saw on your website as I was sort of mining it for your bio. That something that I found there as you describe your signature program, the GLOW protocol. I teach women how to leverage their genetics for optimal wellness by up-leveling the body's innate healing power. And I'm like, yes, let's amplify the body's innate healing power. But a lot of people believe, and this used to be, of course, the prevalent thinking, is that genetics determine what, in large part, the diseases that we're going to get throughout our lives, that so much of that is just kind of out of our hands. It's the cards were dealt before we were born. And so we're just going to kind of like do our best to quote unquote stay healthy and see what happens. And so I'm curious let's first of all bring everybody up to speed on this notion of epigenetics and what that is, and how we actually do switch on and off our genes all the time throughout our lives.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. So genes are such an amazing topic, and we're learning so much about genetics every day. Like, our knowledge of genetics today is so much different, like vastly increased over our knowledge just last year. And so this podcast we're talking about today, this is something that is new to a lot of people, but in next year, this is going to be commonplace. I think it's so funny to talk about genetics and talk about how we think about what we're born with. And so we all think about genes, we figure our mom had a set of chromosomes and our dad had a set of chromosomes, and they passed these on to us, and that became our genetic makeup. That is basically like our blueprint or our instructions for how we're going to be created. But these instructions have to interface with the world, our environment, where we live, things we come in contact to, our thoughts, whether we're loved or not loved, things we put in our body. And that shaping is really what is epigenetics. It's really what makes your genes express in a certain way. So 98% of us have the power to really rewrite our genetic code. Now, there is about 2% of the population that is born with what we call a genetic defect, where that cannot be changed. So someone who's born, let's say, without a leg, I can't really help you regrow that leg at this state in time. Maybe in 10 years from now, we might be able to do that. But however, if it's something where most of us were born fairly healthy little babies. We come out of the womb, and even while we are being created in the womb, we're getting this genetic information. It's shaping by our mom's interaction with the world and our mom's emotions and thoughts and what she's eating and her conditions. And so that's shaping our genes in the womb. And then we come out, whether we're delivered by C-section or delivered vaginally, that shapes our microbiome, which in turn shapes our genetics. And then from day one, we're on this planet. We're either loved and showered with affection, or maybe we're not. And that will shape our genetic expression. And so it goes on and on from there.
Oh, yeah. So much of that, I feel like we could take any number of things that you just said and really dive deep into it. One thing I wanted to just mention, the parallel with Chinese medicine, is this idea of the genetic endowment that we get from our parents. That's known as our jing in Chinese medicine, or like the kind of our essence, like who, kind of who we were born to be. Mm-hmm. And that's sort of like the potential of our constitution, but that may express differently, exactly as you were saying, like whether or not we were, how we were loved, whether or not various needs got met early on. That's kind of like how we take on the rhythms of love, or early on, is like that. How if our mom was nervous, for example, if indeed she was the primary caretaker, like that as we're bonding in those early stages, that can set us up for what we know love and connection to be. And then, as you were saying, like the whether we were delivered vaginally or by cesarean, it's like, that so much of our gut flora we get in that initial delivery process, that I've heard that now people are actually kind of culturing, like all the fluids and little pieces of feces that might be passed on, like smeared into the like in the delivery process, that's actually something that they're deliberately giving to cesarean-born infants to set them up for success. It's so fascinating.
Swabbing the mom for her fluids so that they can wipe it all over the baby when it's born. And that's great. Now, if you're listening to this podcast and you were born by C-section, don't worry. It's you're not doomed to a life of genetic issues. That's just one of the millions of ways your genetics is impacted by your environment.
Yeah, absolutely. And really the whole point of talking about this, I think, is to show us exactly how much power we have, like over sort of if the genetics that we're given, I think of them too, like seeds sprinkled on a plot of land, that like not all those seeds are going to get watered. Right. And some of them are. And so when we do things like, do you remember how many genes get impacted by like 5 nights in a row of not sleeping well? It's like, there's like a crazy number of genes that are like, we don't necessarily want to be switched on, that get turned on in that factor, but that they'll just go back to sleep again. Like if we, to mix my metaphors here, like, that when we start, yeah, exactly. That when we start sleeping better, that if we kind of woke something up that's like, ooh, you might get this autoimmune disease, if you don't start getting rest, and you do start getting rest, you change the course. It's like that genetic.
And that's what's so fabulous about our body. And a lot of times people think I'm joking when I tell them that the symptoms they're experiencing are a blessing. It's your body actually talking to you and telling you, hey, there's something wrong. Here's your cue. I need you to do something differently so that my genes can express the way they should. So when you're getting acne or headaches or PMS or fatigue or aches and pains, these are your body's way of telling you that something, whether it's in your environment, in your thought process, in your interaction with the world or the universe, something's not going well and needs correction.
Exactly. And so, and what a different invitation it is to invite in the information, the signal from your body, to really listen to that, not from a perspective of like, how do I get rid of this? How can I beat this into submission? But rather sort of like, what clue is this giving me about the greater context that I'm creating for my body by what it is that I'm doing in my daily life, the relationships that I have, the foods that I'm eating, the job that I'm doing, how many hours I'm working and sleeping, and just like all these things that it's really that a symptom is an invitation to reflect and to get curious, and that we miss that when we're kind of like, oh yeah, just make it go away. I need to get on with my more important things.
Right. And I'm not saying that we want all these symptoms, but allowing them and actually understanding them and trying to use them as clues, like being a detective and saying, okay, what does this clue mean? Instead of just covering it up immediately with some synthetic thing that you're putting into your body that now your genetics are going to have to deal with as well, right? So now you're introducing yet another thing that is going to disrupt your natural flow.
If people are interested in maximizing like their healthy genetic potential and switching off the diseases that might that we might not want to get, what are the most important factors here?
Yeah, so I actually, what you mentioned in the beginning, my system I put together, I call it the GLOW protocol. And GLOW actually is an acronym for Genetic Leveraging for Optimal Wellness. And so basically what I'm saying is you can take your genes and make them work for you, make them express the way that serves you, instead of feeling like you are a slave to this genes that you were given or handed down. So it's basically like a 5-step process. And the steps are really simple. The first step that I think is important, a lot of people skip over this, but it's really important to define and declare your destination you want to go to. So what it is you want for yourself, but also understand where you're coming from, where you currently are. So understanding your current state of health, what factors led you there. And I do this in my practice by a really intensive assessment that goes through health history, family history, stressors, lifestyle habits, past illnesses, past experiences, traumatic experiences, all types of facets that led you to where you are, and understanding what exactly is going on with you. Not just that you want to lose weight maybe, but also maybe that your hair might be falling out too, or that you also are very stressed and don't sleep very well. So understanding the whole picture of where you currently are, but then also having that vision of where you want to go. It's like kind of like a GPS, right? You have to know, you can't just know where you want to go without knowing where you are, because the GPS won't be able to tell you how to get there. And you can't just go and try to find something if you don't have a target. So that's like the first step that we do in our practice, and with our home study clients as well. We help them assess where they are, and we give them what we call a functional medicine matrix. And what that does is it's kind of like a roadmap, and it takes all of their past experiences, all of their current symptoms, all of their stressors. We call them triggers, mediators, and antecedents. So that's things that happened to put them in their position, things that triggered a negative response, and things that contribute to it staying that way. And we plot that all out, and we determine which areas of the body, which systems of their body are experiencing the most dysfunction. So the different systems of the body might be your endocrine system, which is your communication. So that's your hormones and your neurotransmitters and your immune messengers. Another system would be your digestion and assimilation. So that's your microbiome. That also includes a lot of your immune system, how you break down nutrients for your body. Another system might be detoxification, and then like cellular structures. Another system, your structural integrity, and your transport, which would be your blood flow and your lymphatic flow. And so all of these different systems of the body, knowing where the imbalances lie kind of gives you a place to start and gives you a map to follow. So you can then dive a little deeper and do some functional lab tests or do some further assessments to figure out what is the root cause of those imbalances.
Is there anything that you can say to like the most common causes of because obviously we think about it both in functional medicine and in Chinese medicine and in Ayurvedic medicine, everything works together, right? Like you can't
Yes.
separate really the digestive system from like that. We know that, for example, that when you can't detoxify well, that changes your microbiome, and it changes, therefore, your ability to digest things and your ability to lose weight.
It's so true. It's so true. What we have found is by mapping it out on the matrix, we're able to see where the largest area of dysfunction is, and we can attack that first. And then by attacking that, it kind of alleviates the dysfunction in the other areas and gives you the most bang for your buck. In other words, you start feeling better faster when you attack the area of largest imbalance, so that it gives you the motivation to continue. Because if you start working on the area of the smallest imbalance, then you may not even notice a change, and you're working really hard, changing your lifestyle, incorporating meditation, doing these different practices. And if you don't see a result fairly quickly, then it's really can be discouraging and can cause you to fall off your new health building program. Absolutely. Yeah. I think about that in Chinese medicine as well. We look at kind of what is the most out of whack and what is it likely to be affecting, and start there. And then as the person then comes back into greater harmony, it's easier to see kind of first of all, other things will just fall away because it's a part of that imbalance. But then, it makes sense to be able to. It's really funny what you're saying. It's so true about how each area of the body impacts the other areas. Oftentimes people ask me, well, Dr. Michelle, what do you specialize in? And, it's well, I might like working with women, or, I love talking about hormones. But the thing is, most of the people who come to me with a hormone imbalance also have a digestive imbalance or detoxification imbalance. And so we don't just work, we're not just working on one area. And likely, a lot of times we're not even working on the area you think you need to work on first, because there's usually something else going on. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it can be really true. Okay, so let's take the endocrine system, for example. A lot of times, we know that stress makes everything worse. We know that stress is an epidemic. We know that most people are dealing with more than they would like to be dealing with in terms of stress. And so I've kind of just take it as a given that the endocrine system is going to be out of whack, especially for women, just because it's so susceptible to stress, and the effects of adrenaline and cortisol is so obvious on female hormones, that everything from the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, but then of course the thyroid, the pancreas, the reproductive organs, and that a lot of times it's so. I'm curious as first of all, do you agree that endocrine balance is a major issue for most women, and is that and is stress usually a key player there? Yeah, so stress is actually the key player in almost all the imbalances. And when we talk about stress, a lot of times we're thinking about our mental, emotional stress, which is huge, right? In this day and age, we all have financial stress and career stress and family stress and social stress. And this is all very impactful, but there's also physical stress. This is from repetitive motions, like sitting at a desk, commuting, carrying your purse on one arm. These are all stressors that can be, or even physical injury. This can be a stress on the body. And then there's also biochemical stress that we get from toxins in our environment. We get from foods that we're sensitive to. We get from artificial sweeteners and food additives, things in our drinking water, chemicals in our personal care products. So these are all stressors. And we don't always think about the physical and the biochemical. A lot of times we just think about physical, emotional, or mental, emotional stress. Oh, but stress is the overriding reason for imbalance. Stress is what causes our genes to express in the way that may be unfavorable to us. But there is some good stress, like eustress is good stress, right? Distress, we call it distress, is the bad stress, and that's what causes disease and dysfunction. And usually bad stress is characterized by feeling like there's no end in sight, right? Yeah. But then there's good stress. There's this kind of stress that you get up and you're a little stressed about doing a speech and it gives you the energy to do it. Or there's the stress of, being on the starting line of a race and it helps you run faster. So that stress is good, but that stress is It happens and then it's over, right? Like you said, it's not no end in sight. Like you're on the starting line of the race and then the race starts and that stress is gone.
Yeah. And really it's like what you've done is like, yes, your adrenals are involved because you're excited.
Yeah. So yeah, what you said for people who don't know why stress is so bad, like your adrenals are designed to pump out the adrenaline and the cortisol in times of need when your body needs to run or fight or deal with a situation. And then when that situation is over, the adrenals calm down. But when we have our, bills that are piling up on our desk and our boss who is yelling at us every single day and we're in a bad relationship and, all these other things that we're thinking about that probably aren't even going to happen, but we're so stressed out about them. That is what causes the adrenals to be constantly doing this response that is supposed to be just an acute one-time response. And it does impact all the other areas of the body as well.
Yeah. What you're saying, like just being able to have a relationship with life where it doesn't feel like a series of emergencies is like one of the most important things we can do for ourselves.
And oftentimes when you have imbalances either in digestion and assimilation, it can cause you not to get the nutrients you need to fuel your thyroid, to fuel your hormones, to fuel your adrenals properly. So you might have this response to things that you shouldn't even be responding crazy to. You might fly off the handle for no reason. I remember when I had a hormone imbalance several years back, my poor husband, like he tried to do something nice. He cleaned the sheets on the bed. He threw them in the laundry. And in doing that, he moved the pillows. Well, when I came back in, my pillow, I couldn't tell which one was my pillow anymore because the pillows are switched around. And we had like the biggest argument about where's my pillow. And I can't sleep on any other pillow but mine. And now I can't, but that we call it the pillow fight. But that's an example of like a situation where my hormones and my neurotransmitters were not balanced at that time. And I dealt with a situation in a way that really didn't have to be done that way.
Okay, so that's really interesting to me because it really is like a chicken and egg phenomenon that like that irritability where we kind of don't know where it's coming from, that we might actually be missing some nutrients that can help us stay even keel.
Yes, it's so true. And, that's why it goes back to the whole point of there's no working on just one area of the body because your digestion and assimilation are important. That's one system, but then also your microbiome and your immune system have to come into play too in order for a lot of your nutrients to be created and assimilated. And then your communication system, which is your blood system, has to deliver those nutrients to your cells, right? And then the structural system, which is your cellular walls and membranes, that has to be intact in order to receive the nutrients. So as you can see, there's no one area that you can really just work on one area.
What does the next version of you look like? The upgraded version of me gets great sleep, experiences abundant energy and flow, loves her body, and gets a ridiculous amount done from a place of centered presence. The thing is, the same habits that got you where you are aren't necessarily going to get you where you want to be, and it's tough to change habits on your own. It's so much easier to have some guidance, accountability, and supportive peers who will help you raise your bar. I want to help you off your plateau, to help you bridge the gap between knowing what you need to do to take care of yourself and actually doing those things, like dialing in a daily body-mind practice, getting enough restorative sleep, eating what your body can best digest, and moving through life at a pace that feels easeful and in integrity with your own energy. If you feel ready to step into the next version of yourself and really prioritize the essential habits of self-care necessary to step into your most thriving self, I hope you'll join me for 11 weeks to level up your life. The next round of Level Up Your Life starts in September 2017. Just after the kids are back to school, you're done with your summer travel, and you're ready to really upgrade your life, to do the fall differently, to go into the holidays stress-free. If that might be good timing for you, I'd love to hop on the phone and see if it's a good fit. Go to brodywelch.com, head to the Level Up page, and click the link to schedule. At the very least, it'll help you get clear as to where to put your energy in order to feel how you want to feel. Everything that you just said, that ability to digest, to assimilate nutrients, to have the microbes necessary to do that properly, and then to get all of that nutrition to everywhere that it needs to go in the body. We look at that as the spleen and stomach qi. So like the energy.
I love all this integration of the Chinese medicine. This is awesome.
It's just like they're just saying the same things in a different way, right? Like so what we're going to call spleen qi is the main job of the spleen is to transform food into nutrition and transport to get it to every cell where it needs to go. And the spleen and stomach are this yin yang pair that work together. They're like the captain of the digestive team. Mm-hmm. Really, they were kind of indicating pancreas, as part of that, but spleen gets the credit for some reason, and yeah. So this idea of that whole, and that's like so central to us having the energy to do life with, to having enough, that's really like where we get qi from. Mm-hmm. Where we get the energy to do life from is from largely the food that we eat, and the air that we breathe. That would be like the lung qi portion of it, mm-hmm. and then digesting our life experience, which again is filtered through the mind, which the spleen has everything to do with. And now from a Western medicine standpoint, we know that a lot of the neurotransmitters that have to do with our ability to stay calm are actually produced in the gut, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. There's a huge gut-brain connection. It's something called the vagus nerve, which travels straight from your gut right up through past your heart up to your brain. And just the imbalance in your bacteria in your gut, your microbiome, you can have some bacteria that's supposed to be there that's not there. You could have some that's there that's not supposed to be there. And just being off there can stimulate that vagus nerve and aggravate it and cause neurotransmitter imbalances.
Oh, that's so interesting to me. Okay, can I get personal here for a second?
Yeah.
Do you mind giving me a little public consultation? Okay, so I have some weird things that one could argue were maybe genetic. For example, for about 20 years, I had an undiagnosed chronic gallbladder inflammation issue where there were no stones and no gravel. But then it culminated in like 5 years of basically being in pain like every other week and not being able to eat anything without major pain. And like still like no test was showing that I had any problem anywhere. Mm-hmm. So I had my gallbladder out and I've never had that sort of debilitating, awful pain that like literally affected every major milestone of my life for the 5 years prior to my getting it out. Like the first retreat I ever led in Mexico, the yoga teacher training that I did, my honeymoon, my first trip to Europe, just like everything was like, my whole life was like determined of like, am I going to have this pain or not? Anyway, it sucked. So I had my gallbladder out and like within a year when I was 36, I went through menopause. So my intuition is that for whatever reason, like my gallbladder didn't work. It certainly wasn't necessarily diet, there's, except for maybe, well, anyway, that's a whole can of worms. I know that not eating enough fat it contributes to gallbladder atrophy. But anyway, I assumed that because I wasn't making enough that I wasn't making enough hormones. Like I didn't have cholesterol to make hormones with because I wasn't digesting fat for so many years. And since then, I'm like, okay, well, how do I stay on the planet for just as long as everybody else without the benefits of estrogen and progesterone for the rest of my life? Like, are my bones going to disintegrate? Like, is my heart, like the estrogen protects our heart, like things like that. And the idea that since then, I feel like food will just sit in my stomach and not move on. And it's the kind of thing where I'm like, okay, something happened there. I know that not everybody who's missing a gallbladder suddenly has this sensation that what they ate 4 hours ago is still sitting in their stomach. And also what came with that too is like incredible amounts of things like anxiety and insomnia that I had never really had before. And like, I have a long history of depression that had been at bay for a long time, but then sort of as this digestive stuff became a new puzzle, and like, how can I work with this new body that I seem to have as a result of the surgery, that I had a sense that all this stuff was connected, and I'm still trying to figure it out. And so I'm curious, like, what stands out for you? Like, it sort of given like the history, the factors like that, and the fact that obviously I can be ridiculously careful about what I eat and still kind of like not know. How would you approach this?
Well, being that you mentioned that you feel like the food sits in your stomach, I would definitely recommend you do a comprehensive stool analysis to see how you're breaking down different types of macronutrients. So are you breaking down protein fibers? Are you breaking down carbohydrate fibers? Are you breaking down fats? And if not, you can take some enzymes, but also whether you have all of your species of bacteria that you need to help facilitate this process, and also to help with hormone excretion and the transfer of thyroid hormone to the active thyroid hormone. That all happens in your gut. Also serotonin, which is your neurotransmitter that makes you happy, that is made in your gut as well. So if there's definitely a noticeable digestive issue, then that's a great clue that could be a place where there is some work that you can do that to help a lot of the other areas of your body.
And what if all those labs say everything's fine? What then?
Well, I mean, just without the lab, you can add ox bile as a supplement.
Yeah.
Which help you to break down the fats that you can't break down because you don't have the gallbladder. So that might help. Chances are, if you're physically feeling an issue, then there's something will show up on the test.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, it can just be a really complicated, I'm using myself as an example, mainly so people can wrap their heads around like how these things actually show up in a human body, and that,
I mean, your adrenals still make some hormones as well. So you can get by without, after menopause, you can live many, many, many healthy years. Just making sure that you do address, like, do some weight-bearing exercise, help with your bone health, eat a varied diet, plant-based diet, which I'm sure you do. And that's going to help you to stay healthy and strong.
Yeah, that's the story I'm telling myself. Like that, like that's sort of, like it's hugely motivating to be doing all these things because I don't want to break down.
But the symptoms that you said, the anxiety and then the feeling like something sitting in your stomach, that's your body telling you. That's your signal that there's some investigation that needs to be done.
Absolutely. So then I spent a year getting thyroid tests that showed wildly weird things that then like kicked up all sorts of fear. Anyway, it's one of those things that like sometimes lab tests are super useful and helpful and can just nail it. And sometimes they can just serve as a very confusing snapshot when they contradict themselves a few months later. And it's just like one of those things that's just a moving target. But the importance of ultimately, like, so basically where I'm at with my own health is just deciding that I'm a healthy person with weird lab tests. And, maybe I will get back to
send me your lab tests. I'll take a look at them for you. And now when these people say they have weird lab tests, I get curious.
All right. Well, getting back to things that might actually help others on the podcast, just me, which I super appreciate, by the way. I'm curious as to when people go to the doctor and they're like, oftentimes a complaint that I hear from women is that they're tired, and tiredness could be, of course, from almost anything. But it seems like the doctors are, when we know, of course, that it takes an average of 18 years for new information, new research to trickle down to like most doctors. And so there's a big chasm of difference between people like you who are staying current with what's going on and what a lot of physicians are doing about thyroid. And so I'm just hoping that you could speak to that a little bit. Like, when should women really advocate for example, a thyroid test for themselves?
I am an advocate for knowing your baseline numbers. So, I mean, if you're listening to this and you're 20, I would recommend getting a hormone test done, getting a thyroid test done, so you know your baseline. Like, testing when you're in good health is probably the best tool you can have for later in life so that you know what your good health baseline numbers are. Now, most people don't have the benefit of that. Most people are going to test when they're feeling bad, because unless you're 20 and you're listening to this podcast, then you can do it now. But, as soon as you feel like something's off, then I would definitely run a nice panel of tests. Now, if you go to your doctor and you just let him do what he's going to do, run your regular annual tests, he's probably going to run a very limited panel that's going to be your red blood cells, your white blood cells, your complete blood count, your CBC. And then he's going to run what's called a metabolic panel, which is going to include your liver markers and your cholesterol. It'll probably include your fasting glucose, but likely not your A1C. And he might test vitamin D if you're lucky. Now, and for thyroid, he'll only test TSH, which is your thyroid stimulating hormone. It's not even a marker of the thyroid. It's actually a marker of the pituitary. So,
Yes.
So the thing with TSH, and a lot of times people will come to me and they'll say, I just had my labs run. There's nothing wrong with my thyroid, but I feel like I have something. I feel like there's something wrong with my thyroid. My doctor said my thyroid labs, and they'll say labs with an S, are great. So they'll send me those labs. I'd love to see what he's looking at. And they'll send it to me and it'll be one marker, TSH. So TSH is a great marker to know if there's something wrong with your thyroid. But the problem is, if your TSH is out of range, then that means there is a problem with your thyroid. But if your TSH is in range, it doesn't mean there's not a problem with your thyroid. So you can have a normal TSH, but you could still have an issue. And so to get a complete thyroid panel is what I recommend. It'll test your free T4, which is your inactive thyroid hormone. Your thyroid, when it produces hormones, it puts out a hormone that has 4 iodine molecules on it, and that's called T4. And it has to convert to T3, which is, it has to lose iodine in order for it to be active in your system in order for it to work. So you want to test your free T4. That's how much T4 is in your system, your free T3. And then you want to test something called reverse T3, which is basically the brakes on your T3. It's your body's way of putting itself in check if there's too much T3 in the system. But reverse T3 could be elevated if you have metal toxicity or some types of toxic influence in your system. So that's a really important marker that often gets missed. And then also testing your thyroid antibodies. There's 2 different ones, is TPO and TPG. And those both will help you to know if you have an issue with autoimmunity.
You just said a lot there. I want to briefly kind of go over that for folks. Yeah. And first of all, the reason that you might care at all about having your thyroid test could be not only tiredness, but things like that putting on weight, even though you feel like you're eating well. That could also, of course, be a detox issue. Dry skin. There's
cold hands and feet.
Yeah, hair falling out.
Even.
Yeah, exactly. So just and this affects, this can affect a lot of people. And because it's on that endocrine spectrum where that can be affected by stress and plenty of other things, I think it's really important for women to know. So yeah, that T4, the thing that's mostly tested for, is about the pituitary, not the thyroid, that we need T4 to convert to T3 in order to use it in the body. And so that's why we need to get more specific.
And what I like to do is I actually have this list that I send to people I just do consultations with often, not even people who are actually working with me, but I send them a list and it's a letter to their doctor saying, please run these tests. And, it's just the tests that you need. In addition to thyroid, I also think people should be asking for vitamin D levels, red blood cell magnesium, red blood cell zinc, and serum calcium as well. I think that the more you get to know about your body, the better off you're going to be, the more information you have.
Yeah. And if you can do something about it, and I think, and again, as long as the take home message is that and hopefully I mean, clearly working with someone like you, that you'll be contextualizing this for people where it's not like you have a zillion things wrong if they show up, on these results, but rather because the solutions are often really simple, right? The solutions are often
it's really funny because when you say that, it's so funny because I can have 15 different patients that come to me with 15 different symptoms and 15 different diagnoses or conditions. And we'll likely start them on 80% of the same healing protocol. It's gonna be whole real foods. It's gonna be incorporating meditation, stress reduction, movement. The thing that's good for high cholesterol is also good for thyroid.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, it's so funny. I just did this 4-part series. It was called Natural Healing Made Simple, and that was basically what the whole premise was like, I'm gonna take off the draw open the curtain. I'm handing you the lab coat. I'm going to show you, demystify all this naturopathic, functional, all this medicine that is so new and cutting edge. It's really, like you were talking about earlier, it's really the same as they've been doing for thousands of years.
Yeah, it's the same as what Chinese medicine and Ayurveda talk about. So in general, and that's actually one of the reasons that I've moved towards developing coaching programs is because we all know that it's the same pillars of daily life that are essential to create a foundation of health, and that being the whole foods, the stress management, the movement, that these are things that are basic core competencies for having for being disease proof and to really taking a stand for the healthy genes that watering the right ones and making sure that those are the ones that sprout. So it's so often it's like people know what they need to do, but they're not doing it because it's hard, right? We're in the sea of where the food that's available is not the food that we want to be putting in our bodies, and where we often don't feel like we have time to take care of ourselves. And it's and the stakes are high.
It's a lot harder now in our modern times than it's ever been before. I mean, just because go into any grocery store and you could pick out 100 things that you should not eat for every one thing that you should eat, right? So you have all these options that you have to say no to. And
all of those options
are not even food, right? Those things aren't even food.
No. But they've got great marketing campaigns that tell them about whatever health benefit they...
Yes. We joked on a podcast I just did recently where I said anything that says heart healthy on it is bad for your heart. Pretty much.
So getting back to the point that the body wants to heal itself, how does autoimmune disease fit in there? Because that's basically where the body's attacking itself. What's happening here, and how can we get it to not do that?
So your body, again, every time your body does something, it's likely doing it for survival. And so even those extra pounds you're carrying, your body is protecting you, whether it's creating excess fat to protect you from a toxin or it thinks that you're starving. All these things are your body trying to help you survive. So it's same thing in autoimmunity. Your body, usually when there's an autoimmune response, there's something going into the bloodstream that is a foreign substance that your body is seeing as an attacker. And so it tags that foreign substance as an enemy and it calls up your army and it says attack, attack. And so every time it sees that foreign substance, it's trying to save you, right? It's trying to help you survive by attacking. But the problem in autoimmunity is a lot of times your body can mistake your own cells for this foreign substance. Like in the case of Hashimoto's thyroiditis, it's when your body attacks your thyroid. And your thyroid looks a lot like gluten. Like the protein is very similar. So it's confusing. And so that's what happens is your body tags that substance, but it can also tag part of you if it's right next to it or it looks like it. And so autoimmunity is really your body trying to protect you from this invader.
Yeah.
And it's a case of mistaken identity.
It's a case of mistaken identity. So can the body learn to do it differently?
Yeah. So a lot of times it involves removing that offending substance if you're continuing to be exposed to it, whether it be from diet or environment. And then most of the times it gets into your bloodstream through the gut. So healing a leaky gut, healing your microbiome, rebalancing, and then your body you can nourish and support the area that was being attacked. So it will get back to regular business and your body won't attack it anymore.
That's absolutely hopeful. And the fact that pretty much all autoimmune disease, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, because I do follow the functional medicine world, but I'm sure that since this is more what you deal with on a daily basis than what I deal with on daily basis, let me know. Pretty much all autoimmune disease can be made worse by gluten and dairy because it looks a lot like the gluten molecule. And gluten
and dairy are very hard for our body to digest. Like gluten, take gluten, it's the seed of a grass, and our bodies can't digest grass. If you go out in your backyard and you try to eat some grass, I guarantee you will throw up. It's because we don't have the enzymes to digest grass. We're not cows. We can't digest the blade of the grass or the seed of the grass. So we do have
amylase though. Like we developed the capacity to digest grain millions of years ago.
But the thing is, it's not completely digested.
Okay.
And that's the problem. So the grains are seeds that are ground up basically, and they're seeds of grasses. And so does cause an inflammatory response in, I would say, 90% of the people. Now, this will be different from maybe what you've heard before, but I really believe that there's some people that can digest them and doesn't cause leaky gut, but it might cause an issue with the vagus nerve where you're going to get anxiety or depression or memory loss. So I think it affects everybody, but in different ways.
Yeah, I've heard that from Tom.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. Dr. Tom,
who was saying that like gluten is like a small intestine lining irritant in 100% of humans, and that it's thankfully the small intestine lining grows back, but that it's an irritant, and that, so the fact that you could develop leaky gut at any point if you're eating wheat on a regular basis. Interesting. The vagus nerve is also really fascinating to me because it is the kind of thing that if we are in fight or flight, we're not in rest and digest. We're not going to be digesting our food. So an experiment that I've been doing on my digestive stuff is like, I've been using this essential oil, like sort of like literally like putting it on a point and at the back of my head to try to access the vagus nerve and shift me into it to activate it so that it, just to see if I could perhaps digest a little bit better. It seems to be perhaps helping a little bit, but I'm not exactly sure. But I'd love to hear a few other ways that people can actually stimulate their vagus nerve. Like I know acupuncture is one of those ways. I know yoga and qigong is another ways. My favorite way is singing and chanting loudly. Like that can be something that affects vagus nerve tone.
Breath. It's really your breath. So singing and chanting and yoga, that all really helps to stimulate it. Meditating is a great way to just help it to relax and to be kind of help it to chill out and not be overstimulated. Because the problem with the vagus nerve is getting it overstimulated and it causing that inflammation. So chewing your food really, really well is a great way to eliminate a lot of the issues. Like chewing your food can be a meditation. And this is what I try to tell a lot of my patients and clients. Try to chew your food 35 times. And while you're chewing it, like really be present with your food and think about the taste and the textures as they're changing in your mouth. And that act of doing that, that's your first step in digestion. Your saliva is mixing with the food chemicals and changing the chemical structure. Your teeth are mechanically breaking it down into smaller parts to make it ready to go into your digestive system. And then when it gets down there, it's not going to cause that overstimulation that can lead to that anxiety or stress. And then you're also going to have better digestion.
Yeah, I love it. And so if you're chewing better, you're taking the pressure off of your stomach, which of course doesn't have teeth and can't like actually mix with the with the saliva and the enzymes in your mouth, but you are also slowing yourself down so that you're going to eat the right amount that your body actually needs and stop when you're full. And
yeah, there's so many benefits.
And it's so simple. It's like breathing, chewing. Like the answers are often really simple.
Because when you think about stress, and the stress is your sympathetic nervous system, it's the fight or flight. And then the opposite of that is the parasympathetic, which is we call it the rest and digest. So It's the opposite. If you're stressed, if you're stressed and you're eating in the car, you're eating when you're working, or you're eating when you're upset, you're not going to digest that food well.
Really true. Well, Dr. Michelle, this has been a winding, meandering, and thoroughly informative conversation. Is there anything that you want to leave people with?
What I'd like for people to realize and understand, and I hope to inspire everyone listening to, whether you have a diagnosis or whether you're dealing with an issue and that you've been dealing with either for a really long time or something that's new, you do have the power to reverse that. Your cells are turning over every day. Your body is interacting with your environment on a daily basis and creating new cells, new genetic expressions. So even if you have a doctor that you went to tells you there's nothing you can do, I challenge you to go see another doctor and another doctor and another doctor until you find the one that tells you, yes, there's something you can do. And there is so much you can do. And, if you want to watch my video series, it's called Naturally Healing Made Simple. I can send that out, or I can give that to Brody for you guys to see. But it really does break down just how you can simply, and easily use what you have in your environment to heal almost any condition.
That is such an awesome message. Don't take no for an answer. Trust your body, get the help that you need, and get hooked up with a healthcare provider who believes you and then your capacity to heal. So important. Thank you so much for joining us today on the show, Michelle. It's been really informative and interesting, and I really appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure, and hopefully it's just helped somebody realize that they do have the power to heal.
Thanks for listening today. For more episodes of A Healthy Curiosity, you can visit the iTunes store. If you appreciated today's show, please leave us a review. This helps other people to find the podcast. You could also head to brodywelch.com, where you can find free self-care resources, learn more about Chinese medicine, and let me know what you'd like to hear about on future episodes. I'd love to hear from you. Till next time, be good to yourself.